Hello and welcome back to another Hogwarts Legacy video. Today I'm going to be going over the spells and which ones I think are the most and least valuable to upgrade using your talent or ability points. So there are a limited amount of them that you can use in the game, and they unlock at level 5 after completing one of the main story missions. Basically every single one of them has some way to upgrade the spells that you can use. And so there are some of them, I mean there are quite a few points, so you should have enough at the end to upgrade all of the good ones and then some of the crappy ones essentially. But it also depends on your playstyle. So if you never use certain spells, keep that in mind in this recommendation that I'm giving you. But yeah, there are 17 spells that I want to rank basically for how important they are to upgrade. So before we get into that, a quick word from this video sponsor, the Holwick Wand Company. Today's video is brought to you by the Holwick Wand Company, the link for which you will find in this video's description. If you are a Harry Potter fan and you've always wanted to have your very own wand, not a replica of a character's wand from the movies, not some cheap plastic crap from a sweatshop in China, but a genuine handmade solid wooden wand, then the Holwick Wand Company is the answer to your dreams. Every single wand is 100% custom and handmade, so no two will ever be the same. Each wand is hand carved from only the highest quality wood and guaranteed to be from the exact species as advertised. Other custom wand companies crank out the same identical designs or buy birch doubles in bulk before turning them on a lathe, but not the Holwick Wand Company. From the selection process by their master forester to the crafting process of their master wand maker, every step is completed with diligent and loving care and attention to detail. So if you're in the market for a new wand, check them out today. Again, that link is in the description. And now let's get into the video. So as you can see, when we go through our spells, there are quite a few of them. You have 4 of your yellow ones, 4 of your purple, 5 of your reds, 4 of your light blues, 3 of your light greens, and those are just room of requirement ones. So they're pretty useless for most of the game. 3 unforgivable spells, and then just these 2 care of magical creatures ones. So the unforgivable spells are really, they're optional to learn, so you could go an entire game without learning them because you have to follow Sebastian Sallo's questline and choose to learn each and every one of them. So you might not use them at all. So really the categories are going to be looking at are the light blues, the reds, the purples, and the yellows, because those are our most commonly used spells throughout the game. And as you can see, once you've upgraded, because there are abilities, and this is one that I recommend every playstyle gets, is that you just start with 1 spell loadout, but there are abilities so you can get up to 4 spell loadout. And I definitely recommend doing that because boy does it make the game a lot more intuitive. But so basically these are in your talents section, and you can choose from 5 different sections. You have spells, dark arts, core, stealth, and room of requirement. And basically, I mean, it's real simple. You can read each one and it'll tell you exactly what it does. So if I were to get this one, venomous tentacular attacks deal additional damage and break shield. So if you're someone who uses a lot of plants, I don't. The only plant that I use a lot, but I do use a lot, is the mandrake because it's very, very useful. But I don't use a lot of venomous tentacula, so this one would only make sense if you like to utilize them. But so basically, the spell that I ranked at last, the one that I feel like is the least important to upgrade, is Incendio. And so the problem with Incendio is that it's just kind of a bad spell in general. The only reason why it's important early game is because A, you do learn it rather early, and it's important to use against spiders, spider webs, anything that needs to be burnt, so vines that are in your way, or Inferi type enemies because you need fire damage against them. So early game, you might be like, okay, this makes sense to put stuff into, but you get a better fire spell later, a much better one. So I don't recommend personally wasting a point on it. You can see I've used one here. I'm role-playing as a very specific Hufflepuff type thing, so that's why I'm using it here, because I'm not using it in other categories, so I have the points to spend. But I genuinely don't recommend upgrading Incendio because it's mostly a pointless skill. Once you've gotten Confringo, which is way better than Incendio, basically never have to use Incendio again. So I don't recommend wasting any of your talent points upgrading Incendio. So that one is the one I put at number 17. The next spell is the Flipendo one, which is one of your purple or force spells. And now these ones are important. I know a lot of people will kind of sleep on the force spells, but you really shouldn't. They're very useful in combat. That being said, Flipendo really isn't. Now it's a useful spell because it's a utility spell that you need for various puzzles in the game where you need to flip something, but it is the least useful of all of the force spells in my opinion in the game because it just is a worse version of all of the other ones. It doesn't have any of the positive effects, and upgrading it really doesn't get you anything cool because it's such a bad spell to start with, at least as far as using it in combat. So Flipendo is the one I rank at number 16. It is the only good thing about the upgrade for this one is that it gives you the instant curse application, so it gives the curse effect to people around you, but that really only matters if you're planning on doing dark arts, because the only way that getting a bunch of enemies cursed in one area is effective is then if you're going to use the Avada Kedavra curse on someone, because once you've upgraded the Avada Kedavra and you use that on someone, it kills anyone in the area with a curse effect on them. So that's the only reason why upgrading this would be useful, but really it's just not that good. It's basically a worse version of Repulso. So Flipendo takes the number 16 spot. At number 15, I put Levioso, and now I don't mind Levioso. I still use it late game sometimes. Really depends on what combat style I'm going for. But basically, I mean, you can see the description, levitates objects and enemies, useful for solving puzzles and surprising enemies alike. It is the yellow spells are basically your disable spells. They will slow down or take your enemy out of combat. And so again, they're useful to keep on your spell wheel. I don't recommend going without one into combat, but I find that Levioso is probably the least useful out of all four of them. Now, mind you, you get it right away in the game, so you'll find yourself using it, but it just doesn't have any of the added upsides that the other ones do. And the upgrade for it is a waste of a point, because all it does is it'll levitate multiple enemies if they're close enough to each other, but I find that this effect very rarely comes into play. Now, mind you, if the upgrade maybe increased the duration at which, like doubled the time that someone is being levitated, then maybe it would be worth spending a point on. But as it is, I don't think it's that useful, so that's why Levioso takes the number 15 spot. Similarly, at number 14, I've got Arresto Momentum. Now, this one I do use more than Levioso late game, just because it is kind of the same thing. It will bring them off their feet, sometimes up into the air, but really what it does is just slows them down. And I find it lasts slightly longer than Levioso, which is why I'll use it slightly more. But that being said, the upgrade doesn't do anything special, like it doesn't make it happen longer. It just adds the curse application. So again, if you're planning on being Dark Arts and eventually using Avada Kedavra, then Arresto Momentum might make sense to upgrade, because you can get it to add the extra curse application. But other than that, the upgrade doesn't really come into play that much. So that's why Arresto Momentum takes the 14 spot. At number 13, we have Crucio, and now this one is kind of just a disappointment as far as unforgivable curses go. My first playthrough, I learned all three of them. I'm not planning on learning them in this playthrough, but this one just in general isn't that useful of a skill. It doesn't really do that much damage. Yes, it applies the cursed application, so again, if you're planning on going hardcore Dark Arts and you plan on Avada Kedavraing people, then I guess it makes sense to pair this with them, because you can do a little bit of damage and you can curse them. But overall, it really doesn't do as much as you'd think it would. So other than the really cool animation that all the unforgivable curses have, this one's kind of lame to use. And so the upgrade for this one doesn't really cause it to do any more damage or anything, and it automatically does the curse application, so if you want that, you don't need to upgrade it. All the upgrade does is kind of makes it so if anyone else is close enough to them, those people will also get hit by the Crucio Blast. But again, doesn't do much damage and just isn't that useful as a spell overall. So that's why Crucio takes the number 13 spot. So coming in at number 12 and getting into the area where I consider from here on out all of these to be pretty dang good spells that I actually do recommend upgrading, just because the upgrade is worth spending the point on it. At number 12, I've got Confringo. And so this one is, like I said, the replacement for Incendio. This one is a long-range bolt that explodes and does fire damage. So it's a very useful spell utility-wise, because you can destroy light objects with it, use it on Merlin Trials, burn vines, destroy all of the fire-type enemies, and it's much longer range than Incendio. So once you get Confringo, there's no reason to use Incendio. Confringo is the better one. And the upgrade for it is decent, because it gives you a ricochet effect. So like when you, once you've upgraded it, when you hit someone with that, if anyone else is close enough, it'll like damage both people, it'll ricochet and hit more than one person. So the Confringo is useful, and because it's useful and because I like having it in combat, it makes perfect sense to actually spend the upgrade point on Confringo. So that one comes in at number 12. At number 11, I put Accio, and this is the summoning spell. This is one that you'll get very early in the game, and it is pretty useful throughout the entire game. So basically, it's the same thing as Levioso, because it just causes people to levitate, except this one also sucks them towards you. And it lasts slightly less time than Levioso. But that being said, it comes in handy whenever you're dealing with any type of ranged enemies. So the reason I like this one is because a lot of your enemy types will sit up on a balcony or something like that, shooting down at you, and that can be pretty annoying and takes them out of range of a lot of your spells. So if you can Accio them, bring them closer to you, that really helps. Plus it's a force spell, so it temporarily disables them, it can break shields, it's good for a lot of stuff. And the upgrade, just like the Levioso one, the upgrade for this one isn't like a duration thing, it's just a multiple enemies type thing. Again, because it's a useful spell, and because sometimes you'll have multiple enemies at a distance that will actually be close to each other, it's more useful than Levioso. So Accio is one that I do actually use frequently and actually do recommend upgrading if you have the points for it. At number 10, we've got another force spell. This time it's Descendo. And so this one says, deals no direct damage, but objects and enemies that are slammed to the ground will suffer considerable impact damage. Airborne enemies will take even greater damage upon hitting the ground. So Descendo is one that I find to be very, very useful. And now mind you, this one is probably most useful when paired with something like Levioso, because since they are up in the air, then they take more damage when they slam to the ground. Same thing can be said for any enemies that are jumping or something like that if they've been knocked off something, because the farther they're getting slammed into the ground, the more damage they do. And it's actually a really fun spell to use, so I definitely like it for that. Now, the reason I like Descendo is because out of the force spells, it's the second best force spell in my opinion. So it's one that I utilize a lot. You can see I've got it on my first loadout just for this playthrough. It's also an instant kill for certain enemy types, like I think quite a few of the spiders, if you use Descendo on them, it's an instant kill on them. It's just a really good one, and upgrading it gives it an area of effect damage. So what'll happen is if there's a group of enemies and you use Descendo on one in the middle or something like that, it'll damage everyone around them. So it's just one that in especially congested battles, it actually is very worth it because it deals a lot of damage to all of the enemies. So Descendo is one that I definitely like, and I think it is worth upgrading. So that one takes the number 10 spot. At number 9, we've got, in my opinion, well, it's the second best, but I really like using it, but the second best control spell, Glacius. And now this one is a ice type spell that freezes your enemy solid. Now, it doesn't freeze like the larger, more powerful enemy solid, but it will still slow them down. But for most of your regular enemies, it'll freeze them solid right away, and then using any other powerful spell on them will explode them into shards, which is pretty cool. But I find that this one gives you the longest duration out of the 3 control spells that we've looked at so far, so it's definitely extremely useful for that. Plus it does some damage initially. When you upgrade it, like I said, you'll have that effect where if you use it on them, it will have them explode into shards of ice, which is, it's really cool to watch, kind of brutal, and very, very effective. So Glacius takes the number 9 spot and is definitely one that I think a lot of people sleep on, but it's worth getting. At number 8, we have the best force spell in the game, at least in my opinion, Depulso. And now this one is basically Force Push from Star Wars. It's just a huge, powerful kinetic blast that pushes people backwards. This one's useful utility-wise just because you can use it to blow up objects and clear obstacles in front of you and move stuff. But in combat, it's great because you get this huge ragdoll effect when you just blast people backwards. And the upgrade for this one is one where when you cast it at the person you're targeting, they'll get the regular effect, but it also releases a small radius blast around you. So if you're surrounded by enemies, it can blast multiple people back. But Depulso is very useful because not just during combat can you use it to really disrupt people, break their shields and all that sort of stuff, but you can use it to thrash people into obstacles, throw them into like explosive stuff, blast them off cliffs or things like that. So it is, in my opinion, just generally the most useful force spell that you can use in the entire game. At number 7, we've got probably the, as far as attacking one target, the highest damage spell I think that exists in the game. I haven't tested it super well yet or gone for any crazy builds, but Diffindo is a crazy high damage spell, and it's the slashing spell. It's also got pretty good range. It's not the longest range spell in the game, but it's pretty dang good. So Diffindo takes the number 7 spot. I definitely think it's worth upgrading because, like I said, it deals crazy high damage, and the upgrade actually makes it even better because it causes the spell to pass through the enemy. So if there are multiple enemies in a line and you cast Diffindo on them, you can actually damage or possibly kill all of them. So Diffindo is definitely a spell that I think you should keep in consideration for your core loadout, and upgrading it makes perfect sense because it's really, really effective. So yeah, Diffindo takes the number 7 spot. At number 6, we've got Bombarda, which is obvious. It's an extremely powerful explosive spell. It doesn't do fire damage, which is annoying because if it did, it would be the obvious replacement for Confringo once you unlock it, and you do unlock it later on in the game, but it does extremely high explosive damage, and when you upgrade it, it just makes it even more powerful. So the upgrade for Bombarda makes perfect sense. If you want a explosive spell that deals crazy high damage to anyone in the general vicinity of where it lands, then upgrading it to do even more damage makes perfect sense. So Bombarda takes the number 6 spot and is an obvious choice. At number 5, we've got Harry Potter's favorite spell, Expelliarmus, and now this one is one that I use all the time once I get it because it is insanely useful. So obviously it does damage, but it also disarms the enemy, so it will disarm the wand out of any wizard's hand you're fighting, but like goblins and stuff, it will take the weapon clean out of their hand. And I like it with goblins especially because you can take the weapon out of their hand and then quick R1 or right bumper the weapon and throw it back at them or throw it at someone else and deal a ton of damage. So it's just a really useful spell. And when you upgrade it, you add the curse effect to them. So this one pairs well with the, again, unforgivable curse, dark arts type thing, because it's another one that will add the curse effect to it. But I like it just for the fact that the disarming is extremely useful and it still does really high damage. So Expelliarmus is very useful and it takes the number 5 spot. So at number 4, we put Transformation. And now, mind you, at its base level, the Transformation skill, which just turns enemies into an object like a regular barrel or something like that, it's useful because it takes them out of the fight entirely for like a really, really long time, and then you could also throw that object at someone. But the upgrade makes it so much better because instead of transforming them into a regular barrel once it's been upgraded, it transforms them into an explosive barrel, which then you can throw at people and usually instant kill them. I think even like high level 40 trolls, it does most of their life damage on them. So once you've unlocked transformation, it's definitely worth spending the point to upgrade it and get it so you transform them into explosive barrels, because trust me, it's by far the most useful control spell once you've done that. So yeah, transformation is one of the best spells in the game, and it takes the number 4 spot. At number 3, we've got a very, very useful spell. Again, this one's an unforgivable curse, so if you're not planning on doing a dark arts style playthrough, this one won't be relevant for you, but the big reason why this one is useful is because you can use it on pretty much any enemy. Everyone I've tested it on, it's worked out fine. And once you've used it on them, they will fight for you, so they will damage your enemies. So if you use it on a troll in the middle of a fight, the troll will start attacking the goblins or dark wizards that are around it. So I think that Imperio is very, very useful. And again, just like a lot of the other spells, once you've upgraded it, it also deals the curse effect to them. So if you're planning on, again, using the Dark Arts playthrough, I assume that your ultimate nuke weapon is going to be Avada Kedavra, and so if you can establish the curse effect on everyone in your area and then Avada Kedavra someone, it will kill all of them once Avada Kedavra has been upgraded. At number 2, we've got Avada Kedavra, and now this one again is a instant kill one. You can use it on any enemy except for the like main boss way at the end fight. It won't instantly kill that one just because of, you know, plot armor and such. But for the vast majority of bosses that you'll fight in the game, Avada Kedavra is an instant kill. And like I said, once you've upgraded it, then all cursed enemies in the general area of it will also die. So that makes it super useful, because if you've got if you've got a specific Dark Arts loadout where you've got maybe Expelliarmus, Imperio, and I forget, maybe Confringo or one of the other ones, or Depulso or something, where I can't remember, but it was I did it once where I had Avada Kedavra as my like top spell, and then the other 3 were all ones that also dealt the curse effect when upgraded, and so I would use all 3 of the other ones and then Avada Kedavra the 4th person, and within like 3 seconds you would have killed 4 enemies. So it's extremely useful that way and can make you crazy devastating on the battlefield. So it makes sense Avada Kedavra takes the number 2 spot, but again, it's only effective or important if you're planning on doing a Dark Arts playthrough. Finally, at number 1, I'm actually going to put Stupefy, and now this is one that is just basically your parry spell. So when you're deflecting an incoming attack with Protego, you press Y, right? But if you hold Y during the Stupefy counter, now mind you, it has to be the yellowish orange version, not the red one, because that one is unparryable. But if you do that, then you automatically cast Stupefy. And there are actually 4 different points, I think. There's 3 or 4 where you can upgrade Stupefy multiple times to make it just incredibly effective. And once you do, it really does help out in the battlefield. So now, the important thing to remember about this is Stupefy is probably the spell that if you're effective at combat in this game, you will use the most, other than your basic cast. Because every single time you parry, if you're doing a parryable spell, it makes sense to cast Stupefy. And if you upgrade it, it does damage, it will add the curse effect, and you can do it to multiple opponents, which just makes it incredibly effective. So Stupefy is definitely the one. If you see any skill points that upgrade Stupefy, I definitely recommend getting them. But I find that is, just generally speaking, the best order to prioritize how you use your points, because like I said, you can't get every spell in the game, or you can't get every ability in the game, so it makes sense to prioritize them by effect. But that is all. That's really all for today. I know this is mostly opinion-based stuff, but it is based on, at this point, over 100 hours of gameplay and, you know, multiple playthroughs. So that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed the video, but we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you like this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.